The transport vessel Meridian's Grace hummed through the void between Jupiter's moons, its pristine corridors filled with the efficient bustle of a routine mission. Commander Vex High adjusted his ceremonial peacekeeping insignia as he reviewed the extraction report on his holographic display. The images showed a struggling human settlement on Europa ramshackle domes, failing life support systems, and worst of all, children left to fend for themselves in deteriorating conditions. Primitive species, muttered Lieutenant Zackrose, his 4 eyes scanning the data feeds. Look at these readings. Their technology is barely functional. Those younglings don't stand a chance without proper Zephyrian care. The irony wasn't lost on Commander Vex High. Here they were, traveling in ships that could fold spacetime, equipped with medical bays that could regenerate entire organs, and artificial intelligence networks that spanned star systems. Yet they were heading to rescue what appeared to be a handful of human children living in conditions that reminded him of the ancient archives from his homeworld's pre-industrial era. Back on Europa, 10-year-old Maya Chun pressed her palm against this frost-covered viewport of Habitat 7, watching the alien ships descend through the thin atmosphere like silver tears. Her dark eyes held none of the fear that should have been there. Instead, there was something that looked almost like anticipation. "They're coming," she whispered to her younger brother Connor, who was 12 but looked 8, his growth stunted by the harsh conditions. His fingers danced across the settlement's central computer terminal, lines of code flowing across multiple screens faster than any human should have been able to process. "I know," Connor replied without looking up. "Their scanning frequencies are all wrong. They can't see what we really are." 8-year-old Zara sat in the corner, her large eyes closed, tiny hands pressed against her temples. Waves of calm emotion rippled outward from her, keeping the other children peaceful as the alien peacekeepers' landing craft touched down outside their habitat. She could feel their intentions' genuine care mixed with condescending pity, and it made her smile sadly. The extraction began with clinical efficiency. The Zephyrians moved through the settlement in their environmental suits, their translators broadcasting messages of reassurance in broken English. "Do not fear, young ones. We bring better life. Clean air, proper nutrition, advanced learning systems." As the peacekeepers gathered the children into their transport pods, none of them noticed the way Maya's eyes briefly flashed with an inner light, or how Connor's touch seemed to make their scanning equipment malfunction momentarily. They completely missed the fact that Zara's gentle humming was somehow making their stress indicators drop to dangerously low levels. The children went quietly, holding hands and exchanging glances that spoke of shared understanding. To the Zephyrians, they appeared to be traumatized youngsters clinging to each other for comfort. In reality, they were strategizing with the kind of silent communication that their species had developed far beyond anything the peacekeepers could comprehend. As the Meridian's Grace lifted off from Europa's surface, carrying its cargo of supposedly helpless human children toward the advanced care facilities of the Zephyrian peacekeeping force, Commander Vex High felt satisfied with another successful humanitarian mission. In the holding bay, Maya squeezed Connor's hand, twice the signal that Phase 1 was complete. The real rescue mission was about to begin. The Zephyrian care facility New Hope orbited a gas giant in the Kepler 442 system, its gleaming spires and biodomes representing the pinnacle of interstellar child welfare technology. Director Molthara prided herself on running the most advanced juvenile rehabilitation center in 3-star systems, equipped with neural learning networks, atmospheric processors that could simulate any homeworld environment, and medical systems that could detect and treat conditions that hadn't even manifested yet. She watched through the Yossi observation deck as the human children were processed through intake, a scene so fragile, so primitive compared to the young of other species they'd helped. Their clothing was patched and worn. Their faces showed signs of nutritional deficiency, and their psychological profiles indicated severe trauma from living in substandard conditions. "Poor creatures," Director Multhara murmured to her assistant, Dr. Pixelin. "Look how they huddle together. Classic signs of developmental stunting and social dependency." What she didn't see was the way Maya's eyes tracked every security camera, every sensor node, every access panel they passed. The 10-year-old wasn't cowering, she was mapping. Connor's apparent nervousness was actually his way of maintaining physical contact with every technological surface they encountered, downloading schematic after schematic into his enhanced memory centers. The children were assigned to individual Development Pod 7, a circular chamber with walls that could display any environment to ease psychological adjustment. The room was filled with soft furniture, educational holographic displays, and monitoring systems that would track their every biometric fluctuation. "This is actually quite comfortable," Zara said aloud, her voice carrying just the right note of amazed gratitude. The hidden meaning, transmitted through carefully modulated emotional frequencies that only the other children could detect, was entirely different. Security grid mapped. Emotional dampening fields identified. Guards' psychological profiles analyzed. That first night, as the facility's automated systems dimmed the lights and began their standard psychological reconditioning programs, the children's true nature began to emerge. Maya sat cross-legged on her sleeping platform, her breathing slow and regular. Around her, the quantum probability fields that govern chance and possibility began to shift in subtle ways. The lock on their door, designed to secure against any known form of physical or technological bypass, somehow clicked open at exactly the moment the surveillance system experienced its routine maintenance cycle. Connor pressed his palm against the wall's interface panel, and for a brief moment, his consciousness merged with the facility's central computer network. Information flowed both ways. He learned the location of every other child in the facility, every guard rotation, every system vulnerability. In return, the network learned something that made its quantum processors stutter. Human consciousness could now interface directly with pure information. The next morning, Director Multhara reviewed the previous night's monitoring data with growing confusion. All systems showed normal operation, but there were gaps, tiny inconsistencies that shouldn't have been possible. The children's biometrics had remained stable, their behavior appropriate, yet something felt fundamentally wrong. "Director, Doctor," Pixelin reported, his voice tight with concern. "The other children in the facility, they're responding to the new arrivals in unexpected ways. Aggression levels are down 93%. Cooperation indices are off the charts. It's as if..." "As if what, Doctor?" "As if they're being influenced by some kind of natural pacification field. But that's impossible. These are human children. Their species doesn't possess any form of psychic abilities." In Pod 7, Zara smiled quietly as she continued her gentle work. Her enhanced empathic abilities gradually building networks of understanding and cooperation throughout the facility. The other children, young Andromedans, Centauri refugees, displaced vegan youngsters, all began to experience something they'd never felt before: the deep, protective love that human children radiated when they sensed others in need. The Zephyrians had built their facility to contain and rehabilitate primitive youngsters. They never considered that they might be trying to hold evolution itself. Dr. Pixelin's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the latest batch of impossible readings. In the 3 days since the human children's arrival, the facility's entire operational paradigm had shifted. Food fights had become collaborative cooking projects. Territorial disputes had evolved into complex games that somehow left everyone feeling like winners. Most disturbing of all, the children from 17 different species were beginning to communicate in ways that transcended their individual languages. "It's not possible," he muttered, adjusting his spectral analysis equipment for the fourth time. Their brainwave patterns are synchronizing across species barriers. The quantum resonance alone should have killed them all. Maya found him in Laboratory Complex C, hunched over his instruments with the desperate intensity of someone watching their understanding of reality crumble. She knocked politely on the open doorframe, and when he looked up, she smiled with the kind of innocent warmth that had once been used to sell breakfast cereals on Earth. "Dr. Pixelin? I was wondering if I could ask you something about the educational programs." The doctor's primary eyes focused on her while his secondary pair continued monitoring his equipment. "Of course, young one. Are you having difficulty with the learning modules?" "Oh no, they're wonderful," Maya said, stepping closer to his workstation. "I was just curious about how they work. The quantum information processing systems are fascinating." Dr. Pixelin's mandibles went very still. The learning modules were designed to appear as simple holographic games to young minds. Their actual operation involved principles of quantum mechanics that graduate students at the finest universities struggled to comprehend. How do you know about quantum information processing?" Maya's smile never wavered, but something shifted in her eyes, a depth that suddenly made the doctor feel like he was the child in the room. "Dr. Pixelin, may I show you something?" She reached out and placed her small hand on his primary scanner, the one that had been giving him impossible readings for days. The moment her skin made contact with the metal surface, the display exploded into activity. Data streams flowed at speeds that should have burned out the processors, showing energy patterns that defied every known law of physics. "You see," Maya said conversationally, "the thing about evolution is that it doesn't ask permission. When a species needs to adapt, it just does." Across the facility, Connor was having his own conversation with Chief Security Officer Kexmar. The massive Zephyrian prided himself on running the most secure juvenile facility in the sector, with containment protocols that had successfully held young beings possessing everything from natural camouflage to limited telepathy. "You want to inspect the security systems?" Kexmar rumbled, his forearms crossing skeptically. "Child, these systems are beyond your understanding. They operate on principles that your species won't discover for another 1,000 years. Connor tilted his head, his 12-year-old face wearing an expression of polite interest. "That's exactly why I'm curious. We humans have always been fast learners." Before Kexmar could respond, Connor had walked over to the main security console and placed both hands on its surface. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Every screen in the command center lit up simultaneously, showing real-time feeds from every corner of the facility, but the images were moving and shifting as if the cameras themselves were becoming aware. "Stop." Kexmar lunged forward, but Connor was already stepping back, his hands raised peacefully. "I wasn't trying to break anything," Connor said mildly. "I was just saying hello. Your systems are lonely, you know. They process information all day, but they never get to really communicate with anyone." The security chief stared at his displays, watching as his impenetrable surveillance network began operating with an efficiency that bordered on prescience. Alerts were being resolved before they fully formed. Maintenance issues were being addressed by automated systems that seemed to anticipate problems, and the overall security rating had somehow improved by 30%. Meanwhile, in the facility's central recreation area, Zara sat surrounded by children from across the galaxy, all of them engaged in what appeared to be a simple game of storytelling. But the stories were becoming something more shared experiences that transcended species boundaries, creating understanding where there should have been only confusion. A young Andromedan named Skillex, who had been catatonic since witnessing the destruction of his home colony, was laughing for the first time in months. A Centauri refugee named Pilyona, who had been violent and unmanageable since her arrival, was gently braiding another child's hair while humming a lullaby in perfect harmony with 3 other youngsters. "How are you doing this?" whispered Jex Rio, a teenage vegan whose natural empathic abilities had been damaged by trauma. I can feel what they're feeling, but it's not painful anymore." Zara looked up at him with eyes that held depths far beyond her 8 years. "We're not doing anything special, Jex Rio. We're just loving you the way we were designed to love." That night, as the facility's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, Director Mulfara found herself facing a choice that would define the future of interstellar relations. The human children weren't prisoners, they were teachers. And the lesson they were offering would either transform civilization or destroy it. Asterisk. Director Mulfara stood in the emergency session of the Zephyrian High Council, her hands trembling, as she transmitted the facility's data logs to the assembled representatives. The holographic displays showed impossible readings, energy signatures that defied known physics, psychological profiles that transcended species limitations, and security footage that seemed to document the emergence of something entirely new. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carefully controlled, "I must report that our understanding of human development has been inadequate. Council Prime Vexthen, a being whose species had achieved interstellar travel when humans were still discovering." Fire leaned forward with interest. "Explain, Director." "Your initial reports described primitive youngsters requiring basic care and education." "Yes, Prime. That was our assessment. We were wrong." The admission tasted like defeat in her mouth. "These children possess capabilities that our science cannot explain. They are not underdeveloped, they are post-developed. They represent something beyond our current understanding of sentient evolution." Back at the facility, the children were very much aware of the emergency. Session. Connor's interface with the communication networks had given them access to real-time council proceedings, while Maya's probability manipulations ensured their monitoring remained undetected. They sat in their pod, looking for all the world like youngsters engaged in quiet play, while actually coordinating the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. "They're scared," Zara reported, her emotional sensors picking up the waves of anxiety and confusion emanating from the council chambers. "They don't understand what we represent." "Understanding will come," Maya said quietly, her fingers weaving patterns in the air that somehow made the rune's quantum fields resonate with possibilities. "The question is whether it comes through fear or friendship." The debate in the council chambers was growing heated. Some members argued for immediate isolation protocols containing the human children until their abilities could be studied and understood. Others pushed for enhanced security measures, treating them as a potential threat to galactic stability. "With respect, honored colleagues," interrupted Council Member Yelandra, "we are discussing children. Whatever capabilities they possess, they are still developing minds in need of guidance and care." "Guidance?" Council Prime Vexthen's voice carried the weight of millennia. "Member Yelandra, these children have demonstrated the ability to interface directly with our most advanced technologies, manipulate quantum probability fields, and conduct what appears to be species-level psychological conditioning. They represent either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat our civilization has ever encountered." The council's debate was interrupted by an unexpected transmission. The main display flickered, then resolved into the image of the 3 human children standing in their pod, their hands linked together. Maya stepped forward, her 10-year-old face wearing an expression of mature dignity that made the ancient. Council members shift uncomfortably. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the communication system, despite the fact that no transmission equipment was active in their pod. "We greet you in peace and friendship. We understand that our presence has caused confusion and concern. We would like to offer clarification." The council chamber fell silent. The security implications alone were staggering. These children had somehow accessed their most secure communication networks as easily as opening a door. Connor stepped forward next, his young voice carrying the same impossible maturity. We are not here to threaten or conquer. We are here because evolution has given us gifts that are meant to be shared. Your species has spread knowledge and peace across the galaxy for thousands of years. We would like to learn from you and perhaps teach you something in return. Finally, Zara spoke, and her words carried an emotional resonance that reached every member of the council directly, bypassing their technological filters and touching something fundamental in their consciousness. We are still children. We still need guidance, protection, and love. But we are also the bridge between what was and what will be. The question is not whether you can contain us, it's whether you will help us become what we're meant to be. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. In the facility, Director Mol Thara watched her monitoring systems with growing amazement. The children's biometrics showed complete calm, their stress levels actually decreasing after their unprecedented breach of galactic security protocols. Director, Dr. Pixelin's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations throughout the facility. It's as if the entire structure is resonating. Through the facility's corridors, something beautiful was happening. The children from 17 different species were gathering together, drawn by forces they couldn't name but instinctively trusted. They moved with purpose and joy, their previous traumas and conflicts set aside in favor of something larger than themselves. They were becoming something new, not human, not Cepharian, not Andromedan, but something that transcended species boundaries. Entirely. They were becoming the children of tomorrow, and the tomorrow they represented was brighter than anyone had dared to imagine. The resolution came not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through something far more powerful. A child's laughter echoing through the corridors of New Hope, as species barriers dissolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. Council Prime Vextan arrived at the facility 3 days after the emergency session, expecting to find a containment situation requiring the most advanced security protocols in Zephorian history. Instead, he found children playing games that seemed to defy physics, their joy infectious enough to transform the sterile medical facility into something that felt remarkably like a home. Prime, Director Multhara greeted him at the docking bay, her usual composure replaced by something that looked suspiciously like wonder. I should prepare you for what you're about to see. The changes have been ... remarkable. They walked through corridors that hummed with an energy that the facility's instruments couldn't quite measure. The walls themselves seemed more alive, as if the technology was learning to breathe. Children from across the galaxy moved through the spaces with a confidence and purpose that spoke of profound internal change. The psychological transformation readings are off every scale we have, Dr. Pixlin reported as they entered the main observation deck. Trauma recovery rates that should take years are happening in days. Cognitive development is accelerating beyond our ability to measure it, and the integration between species. He gestured to the recreation area below, where a group of youngsters were engaged in what appeared to be a collaborative art project. A Centauri child was painting with colors that shifted based on the emotions of an Andromedan companion, while a young vegan was sculpting forms that seemed to respond to the thoughts of human children nearby. They're not just healing, Dr. Pixelin continued, his voice filled with awe. They're becoming something new, something that transcends what any of our species achieved individually. Maya found them there, approaching with the kind of respectful confidence that made Council Prime Vexthan reassess every assumption he'd ever held about human development. She was still unmistakably a 10-year-old child. She skipped when she walked. Her hair was slightly messy, and she carried a stuffed animal that had obviously been well loved. But her eyes held depths that suggested experiences far beyond her years. "Council Prime," she said, executing a perfect formal greeting in the Zephyrian style. "We're honored by your visit. Would you like to see what we've been learning?" Before he could respond, she had taken his hand with the casual trust that only children possessed. The moment their skin made contact, Vexthen's consciousness expanded in ways that his species' most advanced meditation techniques had never achieved. For a brief instant, he saw the universe through eyes that had been designed to bridge every gap, heal every wound, and unite every division. "You see," Maya said conversationally, as if she hadn't just given him the most profound spiritual experience of his 1,000-year lifetime, "the thing about evolution is that it's not really about becoming stronger or smarter. It's about becoming more connected." Connor joined them, his 12-year-old frame somehow managing to carry the dignity of an ancient philosopher. The Zephyrian peacekeeping force has spent centuries bringing knowledge and healing to species across the galaxy. You've been preparing the way for this moment, the moment when all of us could become something greater together. But we're still children, Zara added, appearing at Vexthen's other side with the emotional directness that was her gift. "We still need guidance and protection and love. We're not here to replace what came before. We're here to grow it into something beautiful." The Council Prime found himself surrounded by the facility's other children, all of them looking at him with the same combination of childlike wonder and ancient wisdom. A young Andromedan named Scyllax, who had been catatonic when he arrived, was now confidently explaining a new mathematical concept that seemed to involve visualizing 11 dimensions simultaneously. Piliona, the former Centauri refugee, was leading a group in harmonious singing that somehow made the facility's quantum processors operate more efficiently. "What are you?" Vexthen asked, the question emerging from depths of curiosity rather than fear. "We're the children of tomorrow," Maya answered simply. "And tomorrow is a place where every species, every individual, every dream gets to be part of something wonderful." The transformation of New Hope from a containment facility into a learning center became a model for the entire galaxy. Children from across the known worlds came to study and play and grow together, their differences becoming sources of strength rather than division. The human children remained at the center of it all, their post-singularity abilities serving as bridges between worlds and possibilities. Years later, when historians wrote about the moment that changed everything, they would struggle to explain how 3 small children had managed to transform galactic civilization through nothing more than love, laughter, and the unshakable belief that every being in the universe deserved to be part of something beautiful. But for Maya, Connor, and Zara, the explanation was simple. They had been designed by evolution itself to be exactly what the galaxy needed: most healers, teachers, and bridges to a future where the phrase alien species would become as obsolete as the fears that had once divided the stars. In the end, the biggest mistake the Zephyrian peacekeeping force had made wasn't taking the children into custody. It was assuming that custody was something that could contain the infinite potential of love itself. The children of tomorrow had arrived, and the future had never looked brighter. Asterisk.